An Encyclopedia of Freemasonry by Albert Mackeys, Volume 2, Cornerstone Edition. Triangle. There is no symbol more important in its signification, more various in its application, or more generally diffused throughout the whole system of Freemasonry than the triangle. An examination of it, therefore, cannot fail to be interesting to the Masonic student. The equilateral triangle appears to have been adopted by nearly all the nations of antiquity as a symbol of the deity in some of his forms or emanations, and hence, probably, the prevailing influence of this symbol was carried into the Jewish system, where the yod within the triangle was made to represent the tetragrammaton, or the sacred name of God. The equilateral triangle, says Brother D.W. Nash, quote, viewed in the light of the doctrines of those who gave it currency as a divine symbol, represents the great first cause, the creator and container of all things, as one and invisible, manifesting himself in an infinity of forms and attributes in this visible universe. Among the Egyptians, the darkness through which the candidate for initiation was made to pass was symbolized by the trowel, an important Masonic implement, which in their system of hieroglyphics has the form of a triangle. The equilateral triangle they considered as the most perfect of figures, and a representative of the great principle of animated existence, each of its sides referring to one of the three departments of creation: the animal, the vegetable, and mineral. The equilateral triangle is to be found scattered throughout the Masonic system. It forms in the royal arch the figure within which the jewels of the officers are suspended. It is in the ineffable degrees the sacred delta, everywhere presenting itself as the symbol of the grand architect of the universe. In ancient craft masonry, it is constantly exhibited as the element of important ceremonies. The seats of the principal officers are arranged in a triangular form. The three lesser lights have the same situation. The square and compass form, by their union on the greater light, two triangles meeting at their bases. In short, the equilateral triangle may be considered as one of the most constant forms of Masonic symbolism. The right-angled triangle is another form of this figure which is deserving of attention. Among the Egyptians, it was the symbol of universal nature, the base representing Osiris, or the male principle, the perpendicular, Isis, or the female principle, and the hypotenuse, Horus, their son, or the product of the male and female principle. This symbol was received by Pythagoras from the Egyptians during his long sojourn in that country, and with it he also learned the peculiar property it possessed, namely that the sum of the squares of the two shorter sides is equal to the square of the longest side, symbolically expressed by the formula that the product of Osiris and Isis is Horus. This figure has been adopted in the third degree of Masonry, and will be there recognized as the 47th problem of Euclid. Triangle and square. As the delta was the initial letter of the deity with the ancients, so its synonym is among modern nations. It is a type of the eternal, the all-powerful, the self-existent. The material world is typified by the square as passive matter in opposition to force, symbolized by the triangle. The square is also an emblem of humanity as the delta or triangle typifies deity. The delta, triangle, and compasses are essentially the same. The raising one point and then another signifies that the divine or higher portion of our nature should increase in power and control the baser tendencies. This is the real, practical journey toward the East. The interlacing triangles or deltas symbolize the union of the two principles or forces, the active and passive, male and female pervading the universe. The two triangles, one white and the other black, interlacing, typify the mingling of the two apparent powers in nature, darkness and light, error and truth, ignorance and wisdom, evil and good, throughout human life. The triangle and square together form the pyramid. As seen in the entered apprentice's apron, in this combination, the pyramid is the metaphor for unity of matter and force, as well as the oneness of man and God. The numbers 3, 5, 7, 9 have their places in the parts and points of the square and triangle when in the pyramidal form, and imply perfection. Triangle radiated. A triangle placed within and surrounded by a circle of rays. This circle is called in Christian art a glory. When this glory is distinct from the triangle and surrounds it in the form of a circle, it is then an emblem of God's eternal glory. This is the usual form in religious uses. But when, as is most usual in the Masonic symbol, the rays emanate from the center of the triangle and as it were enshrouded in their brilliancy, it is symbolic of the divine light. The perverted ideas of the pagans referred these rays of light to their sun god and their Sabaean worship. But in the true Masonic idea of this glory is that it symbolizes that eternal light of wisdom which surrounds the Supreme Architect as a sea of glory, and from him as a common center emanates to the universe of his creation.